Okay guys, so I am doing this as a whole separate video just to go back and do one more example nice and slowly of finding the translations and also uh, the graph and the domain and range of this particular function. So let's get going on this. Now, we have to identify what each one of these numbers is actually doing for us. So our first number that I want to think about is this one right here. And this number right here tells us that from your very basic parent function of the reciprocal function, that this is going to be a stretch of 4. And for our purposes, this is what we're least focusing on, but just so you know, this part right here tells us that it's going to go right 2. And then finally, this part right here tells us that we're going to go up 1. Okay, so when we need to make our graph, what we need to do is we need to consider what's happening with each one of the asymptotes. We need to figure out what the basic shape is going to look like, and since it's a reciprocal function, we know it's going to be that curve above and the curve below. And then we need to actually graph it out and discuss domain and range. So our right 2 tells us that this way is an x direction type of thing, so it tells us that our asymptote this way is going to be x equals 2. So what that tells us is we've got 1, 2 in the x direction, and our graph, our asymptote, I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Remember, this is going to be dashed, so for my purposes I have to make it solid first. I'm doing it in colors so you can see what's happening. We have our dashed line this way. And this is an asymptote, as we said, right 2. And the other one tells us up 1. So that would mean y equals 1. So we put in our at y equals 1. I know that this is a rough graph. However, right now I'd rather do a rough graph so that you can really emphasize, well, what is it that I'm putting into this graph? You've got several graphs that are going to be important going forward, and this is one of them. Let's go. We've got our dashed line, so I'm just taking out this because this is really not, remember these asymptotes are not actually the graph, they're just giving the graph form. So I have those. Now, I need to make sure that I'm making my graph reasonable looking, but understanding that it's going to be something along the lines of like this and like this. Okay, so let's put our points in here. Let's at least get a y-intercept. Y-intercepts are very, very important. So let's think about what happens if x equals 0. If x equals 0, I have 4 over 0 minus 2 plus 1. That gives me 4 over negative 2, which is negative 2 plus 1, which gives us negative 1. So my ordered pair is 0, negative 1. And that's the only actual point that I'm going to graph here. Because I want, like I said, I want to get an estimate of a good graph. We know it's going to be like this and like this. So I'm just going to sketch in my basic idea. It's coming down this way. It's coming up through this way. Remember, be very careful that it doesn't cross over. Then we've got our other one that is over here. I'm trying to keep it about the same from our center. And it's coming down like this and up like this. Ignore the fact that it's squiggly, but it should be nice and curvy. I'm making it worse. There we go. So our graph coming in, going like this, going like this. This is our basic form for our reciprocal function graph. Curve, curve, and done. So the last things that we need to make sure that you can find are the domain. Domain being all the x values. So the domain can be anything except x equals 2. And the range, all of the acceptable y values, can be anything except y can't equal 1. So there you have the example done nice and slowly. It covered all the bases. Okay, and the idea of this stretch here, if we were to have plugged in a different value, perhaps we would get to see that the whole thing does stretch by 4. And so we would have that. And so we're going to just move forward with this. And I'm going to wish you a God bless you and have a really great day.